In this problem, we've got a company that is going through an auction IPO. And the company is Fleming Educational Software. They're planning on selling 1 million shares of stock in an auction. And what happens in this auction process is the investment bank that's helping out Fleming receives a number of bids where the bidder essentially tells the investment bank, we're willing to buy a certain number of shares at a specific price. And so we need to figure out what the selling price is, what the highest selling price is that would sell off all shares. And that's basically the way that an auction works. You get sort of this one-shot bid where you bid, you list a price that you'll pay and the number of shares that you're willing to buy at that price, knowing how many shares are going to be outstanding following the issue. So here we've got a list top to bottom, and it sorts the price that each bidder is willing to pay from highest down to the lowest. The reason that we're sorting from highest to lowest is we want to make sure we get the highest price possible in our IPO. So there's a fourth column here. We want to know the cumulative number of shares sold at this price. And so if we set the IPO price at $20, there's only one bidder that's willing to buy. And that bidder would buy 250,000 shares. Well, we're not able to sell off our full 1 million shares. So then we need to go to the next bid down. So let's see what happens if we set the IPO price at $19.50. If we set it at $19.50, the bidder who was willing to pay $20 and only has to pay $19.50 would definitely buy the 250,000 shares. And then we have another bidder that said that they would buy 225,000 shares. Well, that leaves us with a total of 475,000 shares that we would sell if we set the price at $19.50. Still not enough. So then we move the price down to $19. Well, bidder 1 and bidder 2 would buy at 19 because they were willing to pay $20 and $19.50 per share. And if we set the price at $19, we only have to pay 19. They still get the number of shares that they wanted at a price that's lower. So take the 475,000 that would be sold to bidders 1 and 2. Now that we've moved down to 19, we can sell 175,000 more because bidder 3 is now involved. That gets us to 650,000 shares. Still not enough. And so if we set the price at $18.50, we would definitely be able to sell the 650,000 to the bidders that were willing to pay more. And now we also bring bidder 4 into the game. They would be willing to buy 200,000 shares. That gets us to the 850,000. Still don't sell the 1 million shares. So if we set the price at $18, bidders 1 through 4 would be able to pay less than what they were willing to pay. And then we also get bidder 5 into the game because we've lowered the price to $18, and bidder 5 said that they would buy 150,000 shares. We finally sell the 1 million shares that we want. And so that gets us to the point that we need. So to the point that we would need to be able to sell all outstanding shares. And that's sort of how the auction process works. You have the bidders submit the bids with the price that they're willing to pay and the number of shares that they would be willing to buy at that price. We set the price as high as we can to sell all the shares that we want to sell. So the offer price would be $18 because this is the highest price that sells all shares. Now, in this process, every single bidder 1 through 5, they buy the number of shares that they promised, but each bidder only has to pay the $18 offer price. So just because they bid $20, just because bidder one bid $20 per share doesn't mean they have to pay $20 per share. It just means that it means that they still get the 250,000 shares that they wanted, and they get it at a price that's lower than what they bid. So in the end, bidders 1 through 5 get to buy the number of shares that they bid, and they all pay $18 because this is the price that sells off all shares in the auction IPO, the highest price getting the issuer the most amount of capital possible.